Alright, so welcome to my video series on outdoor education. My name is Jordy Hicks. I'm a science teacher at Atrisco Heritage Academy High School, and I've been utilizing the outdoors for my teaching for 10 years, which is about as long as I've been teaching. Now, the outdoors has always been a really important part of my life, and it's where I find a lot of comfort, and I want to bring that into my classroom. Not just so that I enjoy teaching a little bit more, but also so my students can gain some insight, gain some experience, breathe some fresh air, get some vitamin D, and sort of experience the ever-changing dynamic cacophony of sights, sounds, and textures that can come with just spending some time outside. This will be a multi-part series, mainly because some of you might not need everything here, and you might benefit from clicking around and navigating the playlist to see what is of most use to you. So the first video is this one, sort of my introduction as to why I do outdoor education, the philosophy and methodology associated with why I do this. The second video, which if you want to skip ahead you can find here, will take you to the sort of hows and logistics of outdoor education, all the lessons I've learned through planning or in many cases just making mistakes. The third video will be about how I maybe use the outdoors as just an extension of my room, just a place to sit that isn't indoors. You can find that video here. The fourth video will be a variation of that, but instead of utilizing the outdoors as just an extension of my room, use it as an extension of my curriculum. Use outdoor spaces to actually enhance or accentuate the things that we are learning in class. That video can be found here. And then the next video in the series will be how to sort of contemplate using the outdoors beyond your class, beyond your school, so that students can actually spend time outdoors or even just looking outdoors on their own and in their free time, and utilizing the community resources that are available to you to enhance or accentuate your education, your curriculum, your teaching. And that video can be found here. Chances are there'll be more videos that you can click on and find eventually throughout this series, but let's go ahead and get started with the sort of whys of outdoor education. Thank you. Outdoor education, what's the benefit? Well, you can consult, countless educational psychology, evolutionary psychology, pedagogy, journal articles, and find ample evidence to support the idea of outdoor education. But for me, it's about being comfortable in what I'm doing. It's about enjoying a space, but it's more than that as well. It's also, it's kind of a trick that I use to prevent my students from compartmentalizing their learning. I'm a geographer by training, and there's a concept in geography called Tobler's Law of Geography, Tobler's first law of geography, and it says that, basically that all things are related to one another, but near things are more related than far things. Now this applies primarily at a spatial level with physical objects or concepts within human geography, but I think it can apply as well to education. The way I view that is that if our students are cooped up in our classrooms learning our content and only from sort of one perspective, and they're literally placed in a box and learning in that box, then when they leave that box, they might disassociate their learning from the real world. They might associate your content exclusively with your classroom. And if you remove them from that space and you bring them into a different space where they may pass by on a regular basis on their way to lunch, then they decouple your classroom with your content and apply your expertise and your curriculum with other spaces beyond your four walls of your classroom. And I think that has value. So even if it's in the hallways beyond your building or around your campus, when they're out in that space, you're essentially tricking them to remember your content. If you utilize your community as part of your curriculum, then when they are navigating that community, they are refreshing their memory, they're reinforcing, they're building that scaffolding of content, of knowledge with the outside world. And I find that is pretty useful. So if I can teach them something that relates to, in my case, biology, and I take them outside and show them a plant that they walk by every day, then maybe every time they walk by that plant when they're not thinking about my class, they end up thinking about my class, and there's nothing wrong with that. So for those of you a little bit apprehensive about beginning this process, I have two pieces of advice. One, start simple, start with your content obviously, and an easy way to begin is just with journaling, nature journaling. nature journaling doesn't have to be something specifically done in the life sciences. It can be done in any content. It can be done on any topic. If you teach language, if you teach English, if you teach math, if you teach social studies, there is a place for a nature journal in that content. And that's a great way to get students outside, sitting down and thinking about their surroundings and applying it to your content, to something you're learning in your class. Even it's just a matter of when they have writing to do, when it's informal writing or note-taking, move them from the indoors to the outdoors, and there's benefit to that. Vitamin D, fresh air. Also, something I call walking with intent. Just go for a walk, ask them questions, contemplate questions ahead of time, and just go for a walk with your students. They love getting out of the classroom, and just use that time and use those spaces to get students to not only sort of think away from a phone or away from a screen, but to also utilize their observations of the outside world to generate thought, to generate questions, to generate inquiry, and potentially generate discussion as well. Now, one of the big issues recently with outdoor education obviously has been the fact that we are remote in the district, and students are at home, I'm at home, and taking them outside is basically impossible. However, there are ways to do it. Once again, nature journaling is a great way. It's an informal form of writing that allows them to sort of get away from the screen, get away from the indoors, get away from artificial lighting, and spend some time outside contemplating your class, contemplating your content. I often tell my students to just go sit and listen to a podcast under a tree if the podcast is relevant to my content. Providing incentive, not necessarily requirement, because we have to consider equity. This is a big part of what we're dealing with now, and we don't want to increase the level of inequity in our system, in our cultural system, by forcing students, requiring students to do something that they're maybe physically or literally incapable of doing. So I hope you enjoyed this part of the video, but it's not over yet. There's more to this series. So you should be able to click somewhere on this screen to be taken to the next video. Enjoy!